I'm a terrorist, and I am a traitor. My name is Yoseph Haddad. I'm an Israeli Arab. I was born in Haifa, a diverse place where you see Christian, Muslim, and Jews regularly interact on the street. At age 3, my family moved to Nazareth, the largest Arab city in Israel. I grew up as an Arab Christian minority, surrounded by a majority Muslim community in a majority Jewish state. Not complicated at all, right? But because I was a kid who loved to play football, or as Americans call it, soccer, I built deep friendships with people with different lifestyles and experiences than my own throughout childhood. In Israel, all 18 years old are drafted into the Israeli Defense Force. But due to a number of factors, Arab Israelis are exempted from mandatory service. Spring of 2002, I see my friends, speaking on what unit they want to serve in, anxiously awaiting the next rite of passage in our country. So I start thinking, why wouldn't I, as a citizen just like my Jewish friends, serve my country? After all, it's not the JDF, Jewish Defense Force, it's the IDF, Israeli Defense Force. I'm an Israeli. So I enlist. Not only do I enlist, but I enlist to the Golani Combat Unit. I lost a few of my Arab friends over the decision. But despite the controversy, I knew that I'm pretty sure doing the right thing. Until few weeks before my service began, I switched on the TV and saw images that made my heart sink. Blood covered the floor, shattered glasses and pieces of building everywhere. Medic and police frantically moving from place to place. The Maxim restaurant in Haifa, a symbol of coexistence. A place where you will see Christians, Muslims, and Jews working together, had been suicide bombed by a Palestinian terrorist, killing 21 innocent people, among them Christians, Muslims, and Jews. My shock and anger ultimately turned into a solemn confirmation that my imminent service to my country isn't for a particular government, but for the people, Israelis. I have to be honest that when terrorists attacks us, they doesn't attack only Jews. They attack all Israelis. Whatever doubt previously remained rapidly disappeared as I understood the importance of my service in the IDF. Fast forward 2.5 years, July 2006, few months before my scheduled release, the Second Lebanon War broke out. I was called to go into Lebanon and fight against the terrorist organization Hezbollah on the 10th of August, 2006. We were carrying out a rescue mission in Binjbil, Lebanon. I was walking back to the shelter, exhausted, sweaty, after we finished our mission, when suddenly, everything went completely black. I feel my body flying through the air, while the metallic taste of blood fills my mouth. I can't hear anything for several seconds until I found myself lying on the floor. I knew immediately I've been hit. I can't see anything, but my first panic thought was, what I'm going to tell my mom? How I'm going to explain to her what happened to me? I roll over. I hear my commander hitting the helmet of our team medic, who is frozen from the shock. I look over my body, only to realize that my foot was cut off. I start screaming. In the middle of the rebel and the chaos, my fellow soldiers put me in a stretcher. The next thing that I know, I was in a narrow hallway, spitting out blood, waiting for evacuation. I overhear the doctor in our unit. Either come and evacuate him now, and he'll be survive, or come in a few hours and take the body. A comment that I wasn't even capable of comprehending at that moment due to the shock. Suddenly, the soldiers lift up the stretcher and start carrying me. With every single step they take, sending shooting pains through my body. We arrived to the helicopter for evacuation, and within half an hour, I'm back home. I'm back to Israel. I woke up a few days later in the hospital with a long road to recovery. In somewhat of a miracle, the doctor managed to reattach my foot. Yet I lost 7 friends and 3 commanders, including my commander, Rui Klein, who was killed when he jumped on a grenade to save his own crew. Through this trauma, I understood what it means to be an Israeli. I, an Arab, was a soldier over Jewish soldiers. I was a commander over Jewish soldiers in the IDF. And I fought side by side with Arab and Jews against terrorists who sought to kill us both. We fought against terrorism that doesn't discriminate by faith. I began to see that the conflict that we hear about when we think of Arab and Jews isn't really about Arab and Jews. I spent a year in rehabilitation, recovered physically, worked, and traveled. Several years after the incident, I found myself in a comfortable, high-paying job as a CEO of a marketing research company, able to run and play football again, and building a successful career, only to realize that I wasn't really satisfied. I saw that despite the fact that Israelis are in the fight against extremism together, there is a lot of things that they are not in touch together. I had to do something about it. So I quit my job, and I founded the organization together, Vouch for Each Other, and began sharing my story with a goal in mind to bridge the gaps in our society. As I toured campuses and spoke abroad at home, I began to receive hostility and threat messages. I hope you die. May God curse you, you traitor, and more. Abroad, I'm attacked because I am an Israeli. At home, I'm attacked by the extremist Jewish community because I'm an Arab. While from the Arab extremist community, I'm attacked because I'm a proud Israeli. My very existence chips away at the fragile basis on which extremists base their hate. Myself and those like me make it problematic for extremists to continue their agenda. For example, I gave a talk at Harvard University. I asked the event organizer not to mention the fact that I'm an Arab. I began to share my story only to be interrupted by a member of the audience when he told me, of course, this is exactly what I expect from any Israeli Jew to say. My response was, my name is Yoseph Haddad, and I'm an Israeli Arab from Nazareth. Exactly. That's the silence that was there. In Israel, I was approached by a young man who unashamedly called me, and he said, all Arabs are terrorists. Not only that, he added then, a good Arab is a dead Arab. I asked him a very simple question. How many Arab friends do you have? His answer, unsurprisingly, was 0. I finished my speech. He came up to me and he said, I'm sorry. He hugged me and then he said more. I guess I spoke out of ignorance. But the ignorance isn't just coming from one side. In another event, an Arab kid approached me and said, angrily, you are a traitor. All Jewish are racist. They don't want us here. I asked him the very same question. How many Jewish friends do you have? The answer was also 0. After my talk, I approached to him and asked him what he thought. He admitted that there were many things that discussed that he had no idea about and accepted my invitation to come to an event of our organization. Going back to the Second Lebanon War, I was also attacked for serving in the IDF in my lecture when one student told me again angrily, how can you fight other Arabs? You are an Arab. I told him the other Arab, Hezbollah, that I fight, they killed 44 Israeli civilians, almost half of whom were Arab Muslims. I told him that we are not fighting other Arabs. We are fighting those who want to kill you and I alike. He had to rethink his stance. Defying stereotypes and changing someone's worldview doesn't have to happen in lectures or in speeches. In 2018, I launched a social media platform and began sharing of Israelis that defy stereotypes. Now, of course, I immediately got hateful comments and threats, but I also got thousands of messages of support and messages from Israelis who actually changed their perspective. I tell the stories actually to demonstrate how can we actually defy stereotypes and how can we actually change someone's opinion. You know, what started as just a few voices has now become a platform of over 50,000 followers, hundreds of volunteers. And for every new person, there is a network of support behind them. I say this to all of our followers, that eventually, you know, bigotry, racism, and hate, all of them, they are universal themes. But there is a way to break down even the most ingrained forms of bigotry. We can see that eventually in many countries, such as the United States, that started from the racial tension, the slavery, Jim Crow, to today's racial tension. We have the others, like in South Africa, such as may not have legalized apartheid anymore, but the racial tension and the and the hate still deeply embedded in their culture. In many Arab countries, you have violence almost expected against the LGBT community, and in China, Muslims face tremendous persecution and even more. And you know what? I believe that we still can change that. We still can change that because, as I said, there is ways, make it happen. I want to go back to you and tell you something about the person who called me a terrorist and the person who called me a traitor. Well, today, both of them are volunteers in our organization. But here's the best part. They request to work together in our events. If we can bridge the gaps between Arab and Jews in Israel, you too can bridge the gaps in your community.